What's going on, you guys? TBR here, back yet again with another King of Fighters All-Star video, and welcome back to the channel, and happy Saturday to all of you out there. Yes, that is right, you guys. Welcome to the Saturday Chat and Chill, where we kick back, relax, and talk about one topic in the King of Fighters All-Star community, or about 15 minutes. In today's video, we are going to be talking about a topic that I have had discussions with many veterans about in the recent months, and that is, of course, going to be a bit of a controversial one for some, but we're going to navigate through it, and trust me, it's not that bad. But we are going to be talking about whether you, Mr. New Person that might be considering downloading the King of Fighters All-Star in 2023, should download the King of Fighters All-Star in 2023. This will be a fun one. But before we go ahead and get into all of that and more, make sure if you guys haven't already done so, you smash that like button and subscribe, and let's just go ahead and hop into today's topic. So in today's video, I want to preface this with a couple of things. Real quick, if you are a veteran, try to think about these things from the perspective of someone who is starting a fresh account and has nothing and has played nothing, right? You're coming in completely blind. Kind of think back to when you first downloaded the game and fell in love with it, because believe it or not, as jaded as we all might be about certain aspects of this game, there's a reason why we have been playing this game, in some cases like myself, for years, right? So keep that in mind going through this video. The other thing I want to talk about is this is not a should you still be playing the game in 2023. This is more so about new accounts, new players, people who might have just a passing interest in this game, whether or not they should give it a shot, right? So that is what we are going to be talking about today. And of course, this is from the perspective of, as I mentioned earlier, a person who has been playing this game since literally day one. And a lot has changed since day one. So if you are going to download the game in 2023, you're basically going to be kind of inundated with stuff. It's a very overwhelming game, is the King of Fighters All-Star, right? You download this game for the first time, and there's just menus on menus. There's menus for your menus. This stuff is crazy, and it can be very, very overwhelming, especially considering the fact that there are always events going on. Now, of course, the jaded player would tell you, oh yeah, well, they're the same events we've had for years. Well, that is true, but new players have not played these events, so they're all new to them. So when you get in here, you're probably going to see some time-limited events, like the things with the little countdowns underneath them, and so on and so forth, and you're immediately going to gravitate towards those, etc., and not really know what the heck is going on here. And that is normal. This is a very dense game. There's a lot to do in this game, which brings me to my first point. If you're someone who wants a game where there is a ton of content to start off, this is the game for you, because there is always a lot of content. Not just new content, just a lot of backlog content. There's a lot of stuff you can get into these different tabs and chew on for at least a little while. And yes, is it samey in points? Is there going to be a lot of content that feels like it's kind of the same thing over and over and over again? Yeah, there's going to be an aspect of that at a certain point, but I feel like that's going to be any gameplay loop. So I'm not going to sit here and fault the game for that, but there is a ton of different stuff that you can do. You have all sorts of story and difficulties that you can go through for the first time, and they do take you through the different series of KOF games, and that is really, really cool, right? So there's a lot of stuff that you can do as a new player. Now, when it comes to the actual gameplay of the game is a lot of fun, and it's in a pretty good spot right now, ever since they did stabilize things and update the server side of the game as far as the game engine, and did some things on the back end to try and fix things. But with that said, there is going to be times, specifically with PvP, if you're a PvP person, that you may have a little bit left to be desired, right? So there are going to be PvAI modes that you can play, which are mostly fine. They can be more frustrating than anything at times, but really at the end of the day, there are things like Dream Match that come along, which is unfortunately not around all the time, but is really the pinnacle of PvP in this game, in my opinion. Yes, there's going to be players out there that are going to tell you it sucks, but it's going to be something that is on an individual basis as to whether or not you like things like Dream Match, because really Dream Match is kind of dependent on what region you're in, what device you're playing on, etc., and so your mileage may vary, but really I don't think anybody can debate that Dream Match is the best PvP experience in this game, even if you don't like PvP, right? But you do always have things like championship that you can play, etc. So if you're a PvP person and you're not necessarily just a PvAI person or a PvE person, then there is a breadth of things there for you to do. It's just unfortunate that things like Dream Match aren't around all the time, right? But you can always do friendly matches, etc., and play with your friends if you have somebody that you like to play the games with and you guys want to both play this game together or something like that. You can at least do that there, but unfortunately there is no dedicated co-op in this game. They've tested it before, but that didn't end well, we'll just put it that way. So yeah, there are options there. However, I would say that this game is not a PvP game. Whether or not that is up for debate or not is up to the comment section, because honestly, PvP has never been the backbone of this game, in my opinion. Specifically speaking, if you look at things such as the social media for this game, whether it be the content creators, or if you even go on Discords, Reddit, etc., PvP just isn't the focus of this game, and some people might believe that because it is, of course, a King of Fighters game, so you could be forgiven to think that going in, but PvP is kind of an aside thing, and it's not something you have to play. So it's there if you want it. Dream Match is great, and Dream Match is really cool because unfortunately downloading the game for the first time, you're not going to be able to play kind of the King of Fighters Smash Bros type of game like some people might kind of sell it as, because of all these different collaborations that we've had in the past and all these different characters that we've had, because they are basically never going to get rerun. So Dream Match is really the only place you can play with those characters, so that's really cool too. So there are options there as far as different characters that you can play as, and that is going to bring us to another point very soon, which is going to be scarcity of characters, which is going to be a big downside to downloading this game for the first time, but we'll get there when we get there. But like I said, Dream Match is really nice to be able to do that kind of Smash Bros thing by playing all these different characters, whether it be from Street Fighter, WWE, Gintama, Samurai Showdown, Tekken, Soul Calibur. There are so many cool IPs in this game that you can play in Dream Match, and it's fun. I enjoy Dream Match for what it is. So PvP in this game, while you don't have to play it, it's there. So if you're a PvP person, this game will have it. It's just that sometimes keep in mind, just like any mobile PvP experience, it depends on your connection, your device, etc., your region, again, whether or not it's going to be super enjoyable for you, right? So with that said, I want to talk about the big points somebody's going to consider when downloading this game, now that we've kind of talked about the fact that, yeah, there's a lot of content. It's a little overwhelming, but just kind of look up videos. There's plenty of different guides out there, whether they be from me or my cohorts here on YouTube. Plenty of options out there. In fact, there's an amazing new player guide over on my Discord that was made by King Tyar. If you guys want to check it out, link is in the description to my Discord. You can check that out, or you can go over to the Reddit, and there is a new player lounge thread there that will have links to everything you could possibly need downloading this game for the first time, including that new player guide. So check that out. Now, with that said, I want to talk about kind of the big downsides here, because there's some big things that people would consider downloading this game, and I do want to talk about those real quick. So when it comes to the characters, if you look at a random video on YouTube, you're going to see all these different characters, kind of like what we talked about with Dream Match. A lot of these characters, specifically collab characters, you're basically never going to see again outside of Dream Match, right? Very rarely will you be able to ever play with those characters. Now, with that said, however, characters from the actual mainline King of Fighters games are similar. And by that, what I mean is all these characters that are going to be your EX, your BS, and your SS characters, if you want to play with some of the BS and the SS characters, you will get selectors in events from time to time, which I highly recommend that you try to pick those up. Basically, BS and SS characters are the new unified banner in this game, which the unified banner is kind of the general pool of characters and cards in this game. It's these banners right here. They're not great. They are very outdated, and the characters on them are only meant to bridge the gaps in the game content that you're playing until you can get better characters. So with that said, any of the BS and the SS characters, if you ever get any selector tickets from different types of events, then that is kind of what you want to focus on as far as padding your account right now. And just consider any of the regular unified banner characters is just kind of codex, really, because your codex is kind of what you're going to be filling there because of those, and that's really the big thing you want to try and focus on as far as unified stuff is concerned, because otherwise, again, it's just so power crept, it's very outdated, and you're rarely ever going to find a reason to use it outside of some of these other things. So with that said, though, the reason I bring up these tickets all the time is because these characters do not rerun very often, if at all. We see them randomly every once in a while, but it's very sparse, to the point where I would not set your watch to anything when it comes to that, and instead I would just try to plan around whether you want to play just meta, try to look up some different tutorials or videos or guides. Again, I've told you guys kind of where to find those, about which ones are best, and kind of focus those, or you can focus a favorite, which I feel like for people who want to just play favorites, that is a turnoff for this game, is this point that we're talking about, but I digress. But really, at the end of the day, if there's a favorite in there, always go for your favorites, always pull for your favorites. But speaking of pulling, we've established that the BS and the SS characters are rarely ever around. Well, if you think that those are rare, EX characters, the best characters in the game, bar none at this point, talking about these guys that you see throughout here, they are gone. They are not coming back. There is a chance at the end of the year, or maybe once or twice a year, you might see 1, 2, 3, 4 of them come back. But thus far, reruns, unless something changes in 2023, rarely ever happen. So if you want to pick these characters up and download the game and just play your favorite characters and play all this content we've talked about, you're not going to have that ability. So know that going in, because these characters rarely ever rerun. However, if you're jumping into the game because you saw a banner character dropping that you were really interested in, maybe you're a big Iori fan, like for instance right now, and you downloaded the game, then you're in luck, because if there is a character available to you upon download, I feel like that's going to be where you're going to have the most fun, because you can go in and get all these free rubies for playing all that content we talked about, which is a big selling point of that content, is the amount of rubies for first-time players that are in there. So you download this game, and this is how I would recommend playing it, just as a tip. You download this game, if there's an EX banner running, just get the characters to A3, like grind on this content, get yourself as much rubies as possible, maybe like 50, 60k, and then invest until you can maybe get A3 at least on one of them, and then you can clear a lot of this stuff, like most of this stuff. You can just go blow through it now. Nowadays, these characters are so strong, this game is basically just a giant power fantasy. So if you're someone who is wanting to download the game for the first time, and you're wondering if you're going to be able to play through this content fairly easily, or if it's going to be something that is going to take you forever, that's a good or a bad thing depending on the person you're talking to. Well, I'm here to tell you it depends, because if you're deciding to just go in on EX banners, you can just blow through most all the content. And that's probably the most ideal way to go about it, is to do it that way, get all those extra rubies, because they're going to pay for themselves investing on that initial banner, and then you can just save up all that stuff you unlock because of them, and save it and bank it for a character that you're really interested in down the road, right? Just budget accordingly. Now, speaking of budgeting though, this plays to this same point. These characters very scarce. Therefore, when they're around, you want to try and get them. How is this game as far as free-to-play friendly? Well, this game, and this may be a controversial point, but this game is very free-to-play friendly if you play the game correctly, right? If you're going in and you're expecting to be able to just get every character maxed out, or even every character in general for free, I'm here to tell you that's not going to happen. Netmarble puts out like 2 banners a month at this point, or close to it. It's a very quick turnaround when it comes to these banners, right? Usually you have 2-3 weeks with any given banner, and you might have a week in between, right? So with that being said, this stuff is going to be very dependent upon how you want to approach pulls. If you're somebody who plays gacha games purely to pull, and you just want to pull on every character, you're going to find yourself in a bad space, in a bad way, very, very quickly. You're not going to enjoy this game from that standpoint. This is not a game free to play where you can just hop in and pull every banner. You have to pick and choose your battles, unless you're wanting to just get a copy. If you're just wanting to get a copy, depends on your RNG. The RNG and pull rates in this game are very up to the individual. Again, like many things, like this is all chance. These numbers are these numbers, and at the end of the day, it's all random. But if you're somebody who wants to pull every banner, you're not going to have a good time. However, if you're somebody who just wants to pull favorites, maybe you're somebody that just wants to play collabs, maybe you're somebody that just wants to relax and enjoy a game every now and again that's a fun little side-scrolling, you know, up-down beat-em-up, you know, with some PvP and fighting game elements to it, go for it. It's great. But at the same time, if you do want to spend money, there's plenty of different options. And I would say that this is a dolphin friendly game to the point where, as a dolphin, like if you even picked up just like 2 of these packs a month, you're in a great position. I've broken these down already, but these things are incredible value for people who are low spenders or moderate spenders. So I would say that if you're somebody that wants to play this game either free or on a budget, especially just downloading it for the first time, as long as you're budgeting and approaching the game correctly, then you won't have that much of an issue. I think that you'll be fine. It just comes down to how you budget, how you approach banners, and whether or not you're willing to forego the FOMO and just avoid it, and just avoid each banner that you may or may not have a little bit of interest in, but you're on the fence about, right? Like those are the banners I go, I'm gonna pass, right? And I've been playing this game with a moderate to dolphin budget for a little while now. I used to whale on this game quite often, but trust me, that gets a little bit ridiculous to do when the power creep is such as it is. So, next big thing I want to talk about is going to be updates and kind of just how the game is looking from a veteran standpoint. I would tell you guys right now, if you're a new player, you'll enjoy this content for a while. After a few months, few weeks, whatever the case may be, depending on how hard you grind it, you may end up getting a little bored. The content dumps in this game are very few and far between. They are not going to typically dump content that is anything super interesting, because really, honestly, they dump the same content over and over and over again. We've talked about this ad nauseum on this channel. You guys can watch any of my videos on the topic. Trust me, it's a thing. But really, at the end of the day, there isn't going to be a lot of diverse new content coming out in this game, and that's something you need to consider. If you're somebody that gets bored easily, and after you've played these initial different dungeons and events, etc., just know that there isn't a whole lot of variance coming your way, at least not from what we can tell. Now, I hope that changes, but I really don't see that happening. Another thing is power creep is just... it's not even power creep anymore. It's just the King of Fighters All-Star. Like, at this point, every new banner kills the last banner as far as the power goes. So this is very much so a game where you're always going to be chasing the meta if you're somebody that just wants the best thing, right? So you've got to approach the game again as kind of just, do I just want to play with my favorites? Do I just want to pick a handful of characters I really like? How do you, it's up to you on what you want to do there. But at the end of the day, when it comes to the power creep, it's here to stay, and it's always going to be here, and I don't see it going down at any point. I only see it going up. And that's something that is evident by just how strong this latest banner was with these characters. Like, these newest characters are just ridiculous, and that's even by comparison to how ridiculous the last collab we had before them was, which was Soul Calibur. So it's just kind of ridiculous. But really, you guys, if you're new to the game and you just want to have a fun little experience with a mobile game, this is a beautiful game. This game really does look really nice for a mobile game, and it is going to be a game with a ton of different content. It's got a ton of characters. Unfortunately, most of them are not available to you anymore in most content, or at least in general content. You can't just add a character to your roster that you really like anymore, because they barely ever rerun them and they don't add them to permanent pools. So it's one of those situations where that part is kind of sucky, but at the end of the day, I do think that if you're somebody that wants to play this game in 2023 or you're interested, I would recommend downloading it. Just understand the points that we just made. There isn't a lot of new content that comes out for this game outside of just kind of reskinned versions of the same content over and over and over again. And maybe sometimes they'll drop like a random little thing here or there, but even then, that's so few and far between, and something they rarely ever drop multiple times. Like, you don't see things like Boss Showdown every single update. You don't, and which is nice. It keeps it fresh, but at the same time, it doesn't, because it's still old content, right? It's just new because it has a different skin on it. So, you know, that's the stuff I would consider. But I do think that if you're somebody that is worried about, you know, having to pay to win or pay to play, you don't have to do that, especially with the power creep being such as it is. That's the one nice thing that can be said about power creep in this instance. If you're a new player, you can play through all this different content. Again, I've talked about just A3 and these EX characters going to town, and you can get through most things, and you can start off a great account that way. So I do think that if you are somebody that wants to download the King of Fighters All-Star in 2023, there is a legitimate argument there to be made, and I would agree with those that say, yeah, give it a shot. But at the same time, there are issues in this game that you should consider like any other game. So anyway, you guys, that's just my opinion. I just kind of wanted to throw this out there, because if you can pull yourself out of the veteran or intermediate mindset and think of this game as just a brand new fresh player, then I think that you'll realize that there are some definite fun positives there. But at the same time, the frustrations we all have are still there as well, and they'll get there eventually. But anyway, you guys, that's just my opinion. Let me know in the comment section down below. Like, share, and subscribe on your way out. And until the next one, you all take care. Enjoy your weekends. Peace.
Continue.